Well, good evening, and everybody, and welcome to the December 2023 meeting of Safe Silver Spring. This is the December program in our series of quarterly meetings with the Montgomery County Police Department's 3rd District. This evening, we'll hear from the officers of the 3rd District, and you'll have an opportunity to ask any questions you have about public safety developments in the greater Silver Spring area. Those of you who are interested can follow us on Facebook at Safe Silver Spring or visit our website at www.safesilverspring.org. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Captain David Reed, who's going to lead the conversation this evening. Good evening, Captain Reed.
Good evening, everybody. If for those that I may not know, I am Captain Reed. I'm the assistant commander at for Silver Spring. Commander McBain sends his apologies. He had to run up to New York a very short minute with some family. But we talked at length with his team, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off, and then I am going to turn it over to the lieutenants who have been doing an amazing job running their sectors. And everything from community engagement to our community outreach programs to just keeping the officers motivated. We come to this ever so often, and we try to speak truthfully on what's going on. We don't try to sugarcoat it. We think it's important to tell everybody what's happening, what we're doing, what our challenges are, what our successes are. But I think just hearing everybody talk about the carjackings, this has not been a year we want to remember. We've seen the violence in our youth continue to rise. Just the other day, we arrested a juvenile that not only had one ankle monitor, but had 2 ankle monitors on him. Why he needed 2, I don't know. We arrested juveniles for carjackings that had previous arrest warrants and previous charges for carjackings. We are just as frustrated as the community we serve, the violence we're seeing, the armed robberies, the shootings. Just to kind of give you an idea, last year in 2022, we recovered 178 personal manufactured firearms and 1,140 total guns in the county. This year, that number is down to 92 personal made firearms and 944 guns in the county. But yet, in every statistic, despite law changes that continue to dampen our responses and how we do things, we always go back to the drawing board. We never throw our hands up. We never give up. We always see the motivation in our officers, and I think that goes to the unique, motivating challenges that the lieutenants have going in and talking to their officers, but they do it every day. We're extremely proud of our officers. We lead in every category: DUIs, guns seized, arrests. We continue to see, we're talking about the carjackings the other day. We've already made 1 arrest on one of the carjackings, and we've got some very good leads, and our detectives are working overtime, working with our community. I'm going to let Lieutenant Galladora talk about the DFR program and how that has just been an amazing addition to what we're doing. So we're continuing to work outside the box to look at new ways that we can do things, and we are extremely hopeful as we go into 2024 that in working with our legislators, and let's start rolling back the decisions. Everybody in law enforcement knew that what happened at George Floyd and that whole situation was bad. We all expected the black eye to come from it because we wear the same uniform, and we were painted with a clear brush that all law enforcement was bad. And a lot of decisions, and this is just me speaking personally, hurt us. It hurt us on the challenges, and it hurt us as far as the officers and the motivation they do every day. That's how come you saw such a mass exodus. I think we've turned that tide. I think we've turned that corner around by us talking to these officers, getting them remotivated. A lot of the kudos goes to you and the community for or simply taking the time and going out and thanking them for what they're doing. That's our community engagement programs that allows the officers to simply go out and talk to the community instead of not being on a call for service. It lets it drive home that we are fighting for them every single day. And this is what these officers are doing. And it's not just us. It's our partners on MSP. Just the other day, Maryland State Police assigned a task force to go out and try to serve 90 active warrants throughout our county. And this was for everything from hit and run, and I'm talking about pedestrian hit and run, to fleeing the scene of an accident, to the reckless and negligent driving going on in our streets. We're keeping our foot on the gas pedal. We believe that this county is worth saving, it's worth fighting for, and these officers are doing their very best to do what we can do. Our recruitment team is out working in full force, trying to get the very best we can. Can't thank the council enough to coming to the table and giving these officers the pay raise and the starting salary. That's starting to resonate with their officers, but we cannot lower our standards. We cannot just bring anybody in with a heartbeat, because again, then we're going to go be back to the same problem we had prior to George Floyd. We want the very best. We want the educated. We want the diverse. We want the ones coming from the community, so that way we can take them and put them in the community. I love the diversity that we're seeing in Silver Spring, and I love the camaraderie and the cohesiveness that we see in these in our district. But like I said, 3D is we're doing what we can do. Not the year we wanted to see, but we're extremely hopeful, and we're going to keep our foot on the gas pedal, and we're going to continue to advocate for our county. And we ask that all the politicians just bring us into the fold. Let us help you make these decisions. Don't make these decisions behind closed doors and leave us out. We're the ones seeing it every day. We are the one that hearing from the community on what is needed. We are the ones in the communities of color. We're the ones that are hearing their pain, hearing their cries for help. We're the ones that are showing up on the scenes of these shootings, wondering why we did not stop these guns. These are some of the systems that we have got to roll back. It's very frustrating to the officers with laws. We catch juveniles all the time, but we can't even question them. Through the current legislation, as soon as we catch them, they immediately contact their parents, and that's it. So if somebody else is fleeing with a gun, we can't even question them. So these are some of the things that we're trying to roll back, and we are fighting for every day. But I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. If you have questions, please put it in the chat. But what I'll do is I'll let Lieutenant Galatora start talking about downtown Silver Spring and the George sector, and then we'll go up to Henry and Ida.
Thank you very much, Captain Reed. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm Tony Galadora, one of the deputy commanders, and I'm responsible for the downtown Silver Spring area. Couple exciting things to announce. Staffing, as we've talked about numerous times, is a challenge. We did just last week graduate a recruit class. 6 of those officers are coming to the 3rd district for training. So they still have a few weeks of additional classes they need to finish up before they hit the streets, but you'll be seeing them out there on the road in the next about 3 or 4 weeks. We also had a few lateral officers from other agencies complete our initial training, and they're out doing their field training right now. So we're excited to have a few more boots on the ground to help us answer the calls that are coming in. I know in the past we've talked about our high visibility details in downtown Silver Spring. We're continuing to do those. These are officers that are, in addition to the ones answering the 911 calls, these are stationed in areas that every month we look at the data, the crime analysis reports, and for meetings like this and talking to folks to hear kind of where the most concern is, and we're stationing officers at those specific locations, again, to be a deterrent. But of course, they have the radios on. If emergencies do happen near them, they're able to jump in and help out. So we're continuing that in January and moving forward. Again, we move them around though each month depending on what we're seeing on the streets. I know I've mentioned this last time, but I can't tell you enough. When you do see those officers out there on the street, if you have a second to just say thank you for being there, that goes a very long way in helping us staff these details. They really appreciate hearing from you, and just a 2-second conversation, if you have the time, really goes a long way. And the word gets back to me, by the way, when people do stop and chat with them, I do hear about it, that hey, I had a lot of people come over and chit chat with me, so they really do appreciate it. So thank you, because I know some of the people on this call have been involved in that. Lastly, I'm going to talk very briefly about our Drone as First Responder program. We've done community meetings, we've done press events, we've had council members out to see what we're doing. Very excited, innovative program. Again, if you haven't seen it or heard of it before, this is where we're having a drone pre-stationed, ready to go on top of a high-rise building in downtown Silver Spring. It's being operated by a police officer. And what they're able to do is we're not flying around randomly or doing surveillance. When 911 calls come in, it can be deployed to answer 911 calls. So there's another layer to this technology, which is it's called Live 911. But basically, when you call 911, it currently takes about 2 minutes or so for them to process that 911 call and then dispatch it. With this technology, we're able to actually hear the call as the caller is talking to them. So that gives us the ability to pre-deploy the drone before the call is even created. So we're excited because we're just testing that second piece of it this week. We just got it turned on and functioning, but we think we're going to be able to impact and be on the scene of calls much faster than our patrol units, and be able to start giving real-time information to our officers who are responding. So it's already been involved in a number of arrests. And again, it's great because we're able, while the drone's flying, there's a second officer in that room able to call the complainant back as soon as they hang up with 911, and they're speaking with an officer providing real-time updates. So it's been great. I think from a customer service perspective, that we're interacting with the 911 callers right away, and getting over top of it, make some decisions on that. So more to come on that. I know they're working on doing some more media releases on with some video from some of our recent events. So we're more to come on that.
Tony, can you just talk real quick? One of the questions was, can drones be used in problem areas for surveillance? And I knew that was one of the things that came up, and one of the stipulations, that how we can and cannot use our drones.
Sure. Yep. Thank you. Great question. So the short answer is right now, no. It's not for surveillance. It's not being used proactively. And I'll give you a perfect example where, unfortunately, I don't think it meets the criteria, but where I think it could have been very useful. Just east of Silver Spring, months ago, we had people go through in the middle of the night, set fire to a bunch of flags and political signage and other things. Very disturbing event. Very upsetting for a lot of people. I know Alan hosted a meeting later that evening, which we talked about it, and there was a lot of people impacted, probably 12 or so families directly impacted by that. After that event, the next night and the few nights going forward, we had our evening and midnight officers in that community provide a high visibility. In a case like that, had we had this technology then and had it met our policy, which I don't think it would at this point, it would have been great to be able to proactively search for anybody lighting fires over the next few nights in that area. I think we would have been able to see it very far away, and it would have been a great tool for that job. But I think under the current policy, we would not be able to do that. But again, this is also, and I failed to mention that at this point, this is just a pilot program. So the council gave us funding to go until the end of June. And they're going to have another discussion on if they want to continue it further on. So right now we're still in a pilot phase, and that's kind of where we are. I hope I answered that question okay.
That was fine.
Yep. And
you want to tell us more about downtown Silver Spring?
Sure. I mean, just from a general crime wise, the trends, what we've seen kind of through the year is, I know at the beginning of the year, we had kind of a big spike in carjackings, not just in Silver Spring, but around the county. That did kind of taper off. Our folks did make a lot of arrests. We actually had about a 5 or 6 week period where we didn't have any in the 3rd district, which was great. And then they've kind of picked back up again. So I think by the end of the year, we're going to close out a little bit more than we had last year. I don't think our increases have been nearly as close to as much as some of our allied agencies in the area. And the other piece of that is the biggest trouble area we're also still having a lot of problems with is auto thefts. Auto thefts has still been a big issue downtown and also in the Briggs Cheney area. I'm sure Lieutenant Schmiel could speak to some of that. Again, it's been challenging. We have made a lot of arrests in these cases, and it's still continuing. So we did work on a press release about a month ago where we caught, if you actually added up multiple press releases, we made about 17 arrests in one day for auto theft, carjacking, and related cases. About 12 or 13 were mentioned in the first press release. We did another one later for another arrest later that night. And unfortunately, they're still continuing. So that's some of the challenges we've been dealing with.
So I know you want the rest of the lieutenants to talk about their districts, but I made a list before we came on, and I wrote down ATM robberies, carjacking, auto thefts, retail shoplifting. We had a daytime burglary on Dale Drive yesterday. So our neighbors don't feel safe, and I'm wondering if there's a more comprehensive program that you have for downtown Silver Spring, because it looks like it's ramped up pretty substantially over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, those ATM robberies, we did have 2. I don't remember if it was the exact date. It was either the 14th or the 9th. I'm mixing up my reports. We did have 2 back-to-back in downtown Silver Spring, daytime, about 11:30 noon time frame. Our officers did an outstanding job. They coordinated with DC police. They had a very good lookout with a tag, and DC police were able to pick up on the vehicle. They had their helicopter up, ultimately arrested 3 people from that event, recovered the stolen vehicle, and successfully closed out those ATM robberies that we had, if that's one you're referring to. I don't have any information for the burglary that occurred yesterday. But
Alan, as far as the burglary, that's still under investigation. The detectives have gotten a little bit to go on, but really not much. Like I said, back window broken out, so they're looking for neighborhood surveillance, ring cameras, stuff like that. Now, I can tell you that the thefts, we are looking at a lot of arrest reports where officers are arresting them on the spots. We are not seeing the problem, say, like you may have seen Bethesda, where they had they hit the Nike store and a whole bunch of teenagers were running towards DC. We had that one time when Nike first opened, and I think there was about 30 of the teenagers. I think we caught like 25 because officers were there. What we have done is we have created a geofence in downtown Silver Spring. So that way, when these thefts go out, they're immediately dispatched to our CBD teams. Our DGAD teams are alerted. Our off-duty officers, the ones that are on foot patrols. And a lot of times we're watching on body camera. And case in point today, Lieutenant Galladori and I were watching where they were sitting outside the store waiting for the people to come out, and they had shopping carts full of gear, immediately made arrests. So the crime is occurring, but the officers are there. And like I said, having that drone as a first responder, as a backup to track movement, if the officers cannot get there, has been a real game changer. And again, kudos Lieutenant Gallador and everybody in has been associated with this program. But to answer another question, as far as the surveillance, yes, that would have to go through and be approved through the council. But you also have to understand, the longer that these drones are up, the more that batteries they're going to be running. So that way, if there is an incident where we need the drone and we just simply have it up for surveillance, now we don't have that capability to track these individuals for a long period of time. So it's kind of a give and take at this point. We're still at the crawl stage as far as the DFR program. but we got a lot of smart people, Lieutenant Galladora included, that are looking ways to improve it because we're already seeing huge success.
Thank you. Let you continue with your program. I just mentioned that we had a lot of interest in the armed carjacking. I don't know if it was Saturday, and then the car that drove down Pershing and destroyed somebody's truck and crashed into a couple of cars. That and the ATM robberies have got people on alert. If anybody can comment on what was going on at Whole Foods, I mean, that was where that happened.
Which specific event are you talking about?
We start with Whole Foods.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to put in perspective. We run probably about 100 calls a day, and especially in that downtown area, including the Whole Foods. I know, again, depending on which day you're talking about a week and a half ago, we did have a foot chase that came out of Whole Foods for repeat shoplifters and made 2 arrests on that one. I'm not sure exactly which event or which day you're talking about. So, but again, it's kind of hard to get into every single specific incident. But there is a lot of events that happen in that specific area, that tight area.
I'll let you take back the program, Captain Reed.
Yeah. So, and just one more thing is, like, there was an arrest made. There was a crew out of Howard County that were hitting a lot of these ATMs, and regional task force arrested, I believe, 4 of them a couple of weeks ago. So we're hoping that they have been linked to the ones that we're seeing. The carjackings are still happening. And that is the sad truth about it. When we do arrest these individuals, it's just a game to them. It's the adult version and real life version of Grand Theft Auto. And we continue to work with the juvenile justice system, our legislators. Listen, nobody wants to ruin a kid's life, especially if it's a first-time offender. But we have to come up with a program that lets them know that they can't do this. Whether it's 500 hours of community service walking through the neighborhood they just destroyed, picking up trash, or at a soup kitchen, or working at a homeless shelter, to let them know that there is a better option. But we're working with our legislators, and we've let it be known that that's not going to be tolerated. They will be arrested. We will find them, and we will bring them to the extent of the law that we can. And then we'll move forward. We just hope and pray nobody is injured in the process. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Lieutenant Dzinkowski.
Evening, everybody. For those that don't know me, I'm Lieutenant Al Dzinkowski down at the 3rd District. I cover Henry Sector, which is pretty much Beltway University up to right around the Silver Spring Police Station for us, and down into Piney Branch. I'm also responsible for our midnight shifts and field training within the station. I'm happy to report we don't have a lot of issues, knock on wood, in Henry Sector, thankfully. It's been relatively steadily slow. We did have a problem at Long Branch Library with some homeless encampment there. I've got an officer detailed to that she's been great handling that. They put up some fencing. We've made some new rules down there that the library is helping us enforce to make sure that we're covered down there. And there haven't been any reported incidents down there, and we're in constant communication with them. We don't have a ton else going on down there. We have a lot of parking issues with the metro and all that stuff. That's mostly been rectified at this point, and Arliss under construction down there. But other than that, we're fairly good in Henry Sector, unless anybody's got questions specific to that general area. I know most of y'all are downtown.
Hey, Lieutenant, my name is Cobb Blaha. I live in Oakview, and as far as I can tell, the biggest situation we have here are thefts from auto. Is there anything else you could tell us, Lieutenant, about how those of us who live in Oakview should think about things? And the other question I'm interested in for the entire group of officers on this call is, what can we as citizens do to support you. I mean, obviously, talking to you on the street and giving the thumbs up, and we really appreciate that. But am I correct? And this is a question to all the officers on this call, that that one of the basic problems is funding and personnel. We need more officers. But just as sort of an informed citizen, what would you and the other officers on this call recommend that we focus on if we're contacting the county council or other politicians? And thanks very much for all you're doing.
Of course, Captain, you want to cover that? You want me to jump into it?
You can go ahead and start, and then I'll help you out.
Sure. So recruitment and retention is obviously the biggest issue, and that's a national problem. It's not just us. Money's great, funding's good. It's helping with our recruitment somewhat. However, a lot of it still comes down to officers are not seeing the results they're expecting to see, especially younger officers when it comes to court and other things. The law changes that Captain Reed talked about earlier, where we're locking up the same juveniles over and over and over again. Really, it's just be vocal with your constituents of the council and make sure that they're aware that you're unhappy with the fact that folks are coming back in a circle in and out of the system and not really having any consequences. So we're repeatedly dealing with them, which also draws on our resources, wearing patrol down. So I would just say be vocal with them about proposing law changes and trying to get things a little bit, I guess I won't say looser, but bring things back to where they kind of were a little bit. Step back a little bit from these really tight restrictions that they have us dealing with, where we literally, like Captain said, we can't even talk to a juvenile that's under arrest. We're not allowed to speak to them. We can't find out anything else that's going on with that event, especially if it's something major like an armed carjacking or, a shooting or something else where we're trying to get information on somebody else that's got a weapon, and we can't even talk to them.
And this is not just Montgomery County. I mean, you probably see it on the news. Baltimore, Prince George's County, a lot of these other places are having these community forums and talking to their political leaders. And here's the thing. We don't want the pendulum to swing all the way from the left all the way to the right. We don't want it just our way. Arrest everybody, throw away the key. We don't want that because it solves nothing. But we have to come up to the middle ground. But in order for us to do that, police have got to be involved in the conversation because we're seeing it. Let us tell you the stories that are seeing. You're talking about recruitment and retention. Like Lieutenant Diezenkowski said, the council has funded us. They gave a $20,000 hiring bonus. Officers are happy. I mean, granted, they're earning their money because we're holding officers over. We're doing callback, and this is countywide. But what the biggest frustration is, and we see it all the time when we're talking to these officers, why am I here breaking my neck when I've arrested the same person 4 times and they're out before the ink is dry on the report? That's the biggest frustration we always get. So we have got to come with hard-nosed solutions in order to fix this problem. And again, I think, this is just Captain Reed talking. I think that the knee-jerk reaction and sometimes the easiest thing to do is, hey, let's just throw the hammer down on law enforcement. Let's hold them accountable. Let's get citizens review boards and let's restrict their traffic stops. That does not hurt. That does not help the communities. Okay. We have to talk to citizens. Let them hear your frustration. That is all that you can do. And again, we don't want the pendulum to swing to far left to far right, but we have to come to a common ground in order to keep our community safe, in order for us to show this beacon to the rest of the National Capital Region. If you come in Montgomery County and you commit a crime, you will be arrested, which we are doing already, but you're also going to be held accountable. And that's what we have to do. But going back to your original question about theft from autos, I have Ring cameras around my house. I have floodlights and motion sensors. Talk to your communities. You guys can start a neighborhood watch program. That what you're doing. You can hook up with your sector lieutenants. We have adopt neighborhood programs that will get you on and will get officers more involved. We try to do all the programs, but communicate with us. We will respond to your emails. We will listen to what you have to say. We will bring it to the team. We'll talk about it. We'll talk to the sergeants and of your sector, and we will get them involved and get the officers involved. We care. This is not just lip service. We want to be able to give you what you need in order to feel safe in your communities.
Thank you, Captain Reed. Who's up next? As I try to do the technical production over here.
I guess last but not least is Ida Sector. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Lieutenant Schmiel. I am the deputy commander that oversees the Ida Sector, which is basically the area from White Oak up through Briggs Cheney and Burtonsville along the 29 corridor. First and foremost, with regard to crime trends in the area, not much has changed over the course of 2023. Primarily what we're seeing in the Ida sector is the auto thefts and the theft from autos. And that has been something that's consistent throughout the entire year. With regard to the auto thefts, we've seen about 150% increase this year in auto thefts. And Hyundais and Kias continue to be the most targeted vehicles that are stolen and that people are attempting to steal. Kia and Hyundai have rolled out new software for older vehicles. So if you know anybody or you drive a Hyundai or a Kia and you haven't had the software updated in your vehicle yet, you can certainly take that to the dealership and see about getting that updated. And we also offer anti-theft devices, basically clubs, if you remember them from the 80s and 90s, where you actually put the piece of metal on your steering wheel. We do still have some left at the station, and our community engagement Sergeant Brenner is in charge of handing those out to people whose vehicles fit the criteria. The main problem, and I think all the other lieutenants and Captain Reed touched on this, but the main issue that we're having with auto thefts is, in the past, when we had trends such as auto thefts, a lot of times it would be one crew coming into an area, coming into the county, and they would be stealing cars, taking them to shipping containers, shipping them all over the world. And that was how they made their money, by committing these crimes. The problem that we're seeing now is it's not just one crew that's committing these crimes. It's really something that has been ingrained in the culture of the youth today, where it's almost a challenge for them. They post it on TikTok or they joyride. They may not have money for a taxi cab or an Uber, so they go and they steal a car and they drive home and they dump it, or they joyride with their friends. And we are making a great deal of arrests for auto theft. Typically they're juveniles, sometimes they're adults, but we are charging them. And like Captain Reed said, they're getting out the next day and they're doing it again. They've got ankle monitors. We're arresting some people that we've seen multiple weeks in a row, arrested 7-8 times over the course of several months in the same area, doing the same crime. And they're being let out, they're being released to their parents, they're not being held accountable. And we're really, as the justice system, the police, the attorneys, the judges, the prosecutors, we're sending a message that we're not really going to hold these people accountable. We're arresting them, we're letting them out, they're doing it again, and they just continue to do it until maybe after the 7th or 8th time we've arrested a juvenile, Department of Juvenile Services may send them to a juvenile holding facility and place them somewhere, at which time they may or may not be secured there. They may run away. So it's been a challenge. Additionally, with the theft from autos throughout the Ida sector, primarily what we're seeing is, number one, people tugging on door handles and looking for unlocked doors. Whenever they do find an unlocked car, they'll go in there and they'll, laptops, purses, anything of value, loose change, wallets, things like that. They steal it out of the vehicle. Occasionally, we are seeing people smash the windows to get into these cars, but for the most part, it's people that are leaving their doors unlocked in their driveways or on the street, and they're tugging on these doors. Oftentimes, that will lead to auto theft as well, because people will leave a valet key or leave their car keys in their car, and when these people are going into the car searching for loose change or things of value, they find a set of car keys. The next thing you know, they've stolen the car as well. We're also seeing a lot of theft of auto parts, including airbags, which are primarily coming out of Hondas right now. They're breaking in and stealing the airbags out of the cars. And we're also seeing a lot of tires and rims being stolen from Hondas as well. We are pushing a lot of resources into the IDA sector, including our DCAT team, which is a uniform proactive unit that is out there looking proactively to observe criminal activity and make arrests. And we're also putting our plainclothes assets, our SAT teams up there. We even have Rockville SAT has volunteered to come over to Silver Spring and work the IDA sector a couple of days a week, just to give us a little bit of help when the Silver Spring SAT team is unavailable or working something else. So we are pushing the resources out there. We are making arrests. Unfortunately, like I said, when we do make arrests, either the same people that we've arrested are going back out and doing it again, or we have other people stepping up that are doing it as well. It's just such a large scale of people that are committing these crimes right now. It's hard to make a dent in it. Another issue that we've really been focused on in the IDA sector is the White Oak Shopping Center. We've had some shootings there. We had a homicide there. We've had a lot of robberies, things of that nature. So we and Captain McBain has been working directly with the management company there, and we're really trying to bolster the security there, get lighting replaced, get cameras installed. We have moved mobile video cameras from the police department to that area so that we can monitor that in real time, both proactively just to keep an eye on what's going on there, and then also reactively when crimes occur, we can tap into those camera systems. It's not quite as functional as the drones, but it does give us an eye in the sky immediately to be able to watch what's going on in that shopping center. We're also working with the management company. One of the main things that we've noticed is that a lot of the criminal element likes to hang out in the wood line there around the White Oak Shopping Center. There's a lot of criminal activity, a lot of filth, a lot of people hanging out. So we've worked with the management company, and they have agreed that it is their property. They're going to bring in their tree cutting services, and they're going to cut back that wood line and cut it up so that there's a line of sight, so that it's not providing cover to people that are lurking in those areas waiting to commit crimes or use drugs, things of that nature. We're also bringing our CIT people, which are the mental health professionals, up into that area. We've had a lot of issues recently with homeless people in that area, and especially people hanging out at the bus stops, sleeping in the bus stops. So we're trying to bring the mental health component in there as well and try to get these people the help that they need and treat the mental health issues. The last thing that I'll touch on is our community engagement. We are continuing to do the Adopted Neighborhood program, and that's a district-wide thing where we have several neighborhoods. I know for IDA sector, it's White Oak, Calverton, and the Castle Boulevard area, where we're tasking our officers with getting into those neighborhoods, turning the blue lights on, and doing a visible patrol in their marked cars so that they're seen, so that they're contacting the citizens, and so that they're kind of out there looking for criminal activity in those neighborhoods. Additionally, we have seen a great deal of success. We started in the IDA sector, what we call the shopping center community engagement detail. And basically what I did was I tasked all IDA sector officers with spending 1/2 an hour at least per week going into one of the IDA sector shopping centers and parking their car, getting out of their car, walking along the storefronts, stopping into the stores, speaking to the salespeople, speaking to the managers, the employees, speaking to the people that are in the shopping center. And it was a multifaceted goal. Number one was to obviously provide visibility there so that people that were shopping and utilizing the shopping centers would see the officers there and feel a sense of safety knowing that the officers are there. But more than that, we wanted to let the shopping centers know that we were there to work with them and have our officers positively engage with the citizens. And like Captain Reed touched on, after George Floyd and defund the police and all that, the officers were, quite frankly, they were scared. They felt unloved, they felt unappreciated, and they had really kind of withdrawn themselves. And this program has kind of forced them to get out of their cars, talk to people, and it has been an overwhelmingly supportive and well-received program, both from the citizens and the officers. The officers are coming back and reporting that citizens are thanking them. They're having conversations. They're letting them know they're appreciated. This is bolstering the morale of the officers. And the citizens are also having an opportunity to interact with the officers and get to know the officers in their communities. So that has been so successful in the Ida sector that Captain McBain has rolled it out throughout the other two sectors as well. And we're getting that up and running. And the other nice thing that it's able to do, we talk a lot about, we're doing community engagement. We're out there, we're meeting the community, we're doing these things, but we never really had a metric by which we could track these things. And we've worked with the crime analyst, and we have a way now where we're able to track exactly where the officers are spending their time, how much time they're spending there, the types of positive interactions they're having, if they're making arrests. So the crime analyst has come up with a really amazing spreadsheet that's allowing us to actually track the metrics of our community engagement, which historically has been a very difficult thing to track. So that's kind of what's going on in the Ida sector right now. And unless anybody has any questions, that's really all that I have.
That was great. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back to Captain Reed. I know he's been looking at the chat. Might want to comment on some of the issues that people have been raising. I'd ask our guests, and in the discussion, you could use the raise your hand function. You find it under the reactions icon. If you have a question that you want to ask to our friends in law enforcement. But let me turn it back over to Captain Reed. Looks like traffic safety is one of the issues that, and speeding is one of the issues that people are concerned about.
Yeah, so we just had a meeting yesterday with DOT, and they have been rolling out. The guy at DOT we've been working with has been there since like 2013, so he's been heavily involved in a lot. So we're working on a lot of calming measures, targeting our areas where it's the worst downtown Silver Spring. But you have to realize, with everything going on, traffic safety, and even though Silver Spring still leads in all traffic stops, we're relying a lot on technology as far as what we can do. I know the traffic division is trying to kind of rewrite the rule book so we can have more red light cameras and speed cameras to be implemented. That's not a big sale for a lot of people. They don't like the red light cameras and speed cameras, but it allows us to be in a lot of places. And I think everybody that lives on downtown Silver Spring, and probably one day you can count 50 cars that run a red light on a right turn. It happens every time I go down there. I go to make a traffic stop, and there's 7 more that do it right in front of me. So what car do I pull over? So the right on red is a big problem, especially when pedestrians are not really looking out for their own welfare and their heads are in their phone. So we're working with DOT and calming measures, higher areas that will slow traffic down. But that's one of the things that we're working on right now. And of course, like somebody said in the chat, every time that we have our central traffic unit deployed down in Silver Spring, a lot of the time they're either downtown Silver Spring or up 29 or up Georgia Avenue to try to make a presence. So we try to use them when we can. So that's what we're doing. Another thing I just wanted to quickly kick on. Somebody asked a question about gangs. We have seen no gang activity in Silver Spring, other than probably I think the last time is we had 6 months ago. We had some tagging in downtown Silver Spring that was immediately brought to my attention, and was handled by our CBD unit and our gang unit. And ended up finding a couple of teenagers being responsible for it. They were arrested and charged, but we have no information of gangs. And then lastly, what I want to talk about is people talking about gunshots. So we have contact shootings and non-contact shootings. A lot of the times we get on scene and we have no evidence and we can't even find a shell casing. But I also want to remind everybody, and we go through this pretty much every year when we come around July 4th and the holidays, we are getting more and more calls for shots fired, but when the officers get on scene, they hear it and it's fireworks. So the kids are shooting off the bottle rockets or the M9s or whatever, and people immediately think it's a gunshot. Now we will treat every call as if until we know what it is, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there too. But we're doing everything that we can do to keep your community safe. We value your input. You can email us at any time. It's basically our name at montgomerycountymd.gov. For me, it's david.reed@montgomerycountymd.gov. Commander McBain, David.McBain, or the Silver Spring Commander, all your lieutenants. We try to respond to you guys as soon as we can. And we value your input, we value your feedback, and we take it to heart, and we do what we can to help you and make Silver Spring safe. So if anybody has any questions, feel free, but that's all I got, and I think that's all the team has.
No, we've got questions. So I want to ask you, what's been your recent experience with people driving under the influence of alcohol or cannabis? And is it a big problem? Is it decreasing, increasing, or what?
Well, since Lieutenant Diezenkowski came straight from the Alcohol Initiatives Unit, I'm going to let him take that. But I will say this before he takes over. I'm not sure if you guys heard the amazing news that Sergeant Kep was well enough to be moved to Walter Reed. So he's a little bit closer to home. He's being taken care of by the very best. And Lieutenant Diezenkowski has been one of the executives spearheading, all the help that we've been getting to him. And we appreciate all the prayers. And I look forward very much to mentoring him, to be make him a lieutenant one day, and to get him back on the force. But he's just a walking example of just an amazing individual. But with that, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Diezenkowski.
Yeah, my most recent post prior to this, I spent 5 years running the Alcohol Initiatives Unit as a supervisor there as a sergeant. Alan, yes, impaired driving is still a significant issue. If you were able to get down any of the arrest data for the county, you'll see the numbers are down. However, much of that is due to staffing. We just don't have the officers to go out and hunt and look for the impaired drivers as much as we normally would like to. I know the Holiday Task Force is running right now. I used to run that for the last 5 years, and it is down to less than half of what we're able to staff it with, just because we don't have officers to spare from patrol to do it. As much as we'd like to have that participate. We sent several from Silver Spring to participate, and they do spend a lot of time in downtown looking for those impaired drivers, but we just don't have the physical resources to get to all the ones we want to get to in between the other calls where the officers are dealing with. Cannabis, yes, we've seen a fair amount. That's still a training curve that we're working with our officers to get them up to speed. It presents itself a little bit differently than alcohol does for alcohol impairment. So that's a little bit of a hurdle, but we're working through all that stuff too.
And what do officers do when they see somebody smoking cannabis in public? There's been some complaints that we've had, sort of Veterans Plaza, downtown Silver Spring. What can they do? What do they do?
Nothing. There's nothing that the council has made it known that, and the state's attorney's office has made it known they will not charge them. So we're not putting our officers in a trick bag. We can ask them not to do anything, but that's to the extent, because If we ask our officers to be aggressive and try to move people along, what happens if all of a sudden they turn on the officers and now there's a fight?
Yeah,
We simply will not put our officers in that trip back.
I agree.
I know that some people have had that, they've raised that issue, and I just wanted to get you guys a chance to respond to it. Earlier this year, we made a big deal about the deployment of some closed circuit television cameras in downtown Silver Spring. There was one on Thayer Avenue near the Safeway, which comes and goes. I'm wondering what's been your experience, this year with those closed circuit television cameras, and whether or not they've deterred, if you can tell, deterred crime in downtown Silver Spring.
Well, I think not only have they deterred crime, but they've actually solved some crimes and actually solved a homicide where we caught the incident on camera. The reason they come and go is because they have to be what we call PM, preventative maintenance, where they have to make sure the cameras are working, the solar panels are working. Again, working with our technology, we are working with Darrell White about the City Watch program. We finally found a camera we think is going to work. These are cameras that goes up on telephone poles. And what we're doing as far as our technology goes, these City Watch cameras, along with our cameras, they're all linked into our real-time crime center, so that when a call goes out and the drone is launched, they're all geo-fenced in. So not only are you going to have the drone there, but all these cameras are going to be there, and they're going to be able to pick out the suspects from the original call, and they're going to work together at the real-time crime center to have officers come in. So the days of these guys getting away are slowly shrinking because when the officers fighting traffic and stuff like that, they just won't go to the scene anymore. They're going to be directed, go down Georgia Avenue, make a left on Thayer, make your first right, 2 blocks up, right next to the gas pump. There he is. I mean, officers, and this is what they're doing right now, and it's perfect. What we're trying to do is we're trying to work with our PIO office, our public information office. We want to have press conferences. We want to have media blasts about what we're doing, how this technology is working, how we are arresting people on the spot, so we can get these news agencies to be our advocates, to get that word out of the technology we're using, so the criminals like, man, I'm not going in Montgomery County. They got eyes in the sky and, people hiding behind bushes and stuff like that. So that's the kind of the technology we're trying to use in order to do this.
Good.
What's your sense, if there is one, about the amount of crime which is perpetrated by people who are homegrown, who live around here, who come from other jurisdictions? There's a lot of speculation about that most of the crime is being committed by people who are coming from DC and Prince George's, maybe even Howard County, as opposed to being from Silver Spring. Do you have any sense of that?
Well, yeah, and I think any of the lieutenants can chime in too, but the majority of the arrest reports I see is the criminal element comes in from outside of Silver Spring, comes in from an area. Now, in law enforcement, there's 2 reasons for that. Do you want to do crime where you live, so that way you're easily recognized? But another thing is we're really reining down and working very hard on our nightlife to make it less appealing to the criminal element to come in after 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're really trying to work with our council and our partnerships. I know if you guys have read the papers, Prince George's County had it up to here with what was going on with the hookah bars and stuff like that. And from my understanding, they shut everything down at 8 o'clock at night. So we are trying to work with our council to come up with another plan, and to we did the nighttime safety plan. I'm hoping by the first of next year, we can really start implementing these plans. And for those that do not want to help us to keep our community safe, then we're going to hold them accountable. But I mean, we have our midnight units. Lieutenant Diezenkowski can chime in on this. When it's the most busy, we have a third of our midnight officers walking around at Bonifant Street and stuff like that, just trying to keep the peace, just trying to keep, when they're coming out of the hookah bars, go home. We don't want you here. No fights, no stabbings, no nothing like that. A real presence. So wherever we think the crime may occur, we're trying to be proactive and put our officers there first.
Yeah, I've watched countless body camera videos where we're dealing with fights and breaking up fights, but the officers have been down there for an hour or two ahead of time just to try to keep people moving. It's so bad downtown once in a while where they're there preemptively because they know there's just gonna be a mob of people standing in the middle of the road with cars not being able to go anywhere or anything else. So they detail themselves down there. They're very good about making sure they're down there to stop things before they happen. So I'm very thankful that they do all that stuff for us.
And just to put that in perspective, sometimes you can have 12 officers dealing with a crowd of 300 to 400 people. So put that.
Yeah, we've talked about that on these calls before. How often does that happen, that there's these large crowds of 200, 300, 400 people?
Well, a lot of times we don't get the early warnings. Sometimes places rent out their locations to parties and stuff like that. And the only time we know is when a supervisor gets on the air and requests backup from other districts. And they're quickly having to assess the situation and trying to keep everybody calm and dealing with it without anybody getting hurt. And then you got alcohol and cannabis involved, and then tempers flare because one person pushed somebody else. And you're having an officer going into a crowd of 20 people trying to maintain the peace. That can be very scary at times, but we are so very proud of the professionalism that these officers are displaying and trying to just maintain the peace. And of course, they get yelled at that they're not making arrests. Well, at that point, what they're trying to do is just break up the fight and trying to get everybody to go their merry way. Because if they turn on one person to make an arrest, what are they going to do? The 30 people they came with are going to turn on that officer. So it is a double-edged sword, and these officers are walking a tightrope down there every single weekend when it gets busy.
So I was going to ask, so how frequent is it? Is it every weekend? Is it once a month, or is it
Especially in the summer,
reliably?
Alan, especially in the summer, almost every Friday and Saturday night, they send almost the entire shift down there to try to keep the peace before it gets crazy. So it's pretty frequent, especially
for the New Year's.
And because most of us aren't out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, so we just hear these anecdotal reports about large crowds. Has it calmed down a bit as the weather's got cooler?
It slows and kind of goes in waves unless there's an event, but the colder weather definitely keeps them from milling around as long. But again, you know how it goes with alcohol, so they don't feel in the cold anyway necessarily. So sometimes it's not helpful entirely anyway.
So let's show the questions that I wanted to ask, and thank you all for joining us this evening. I think this has been a lot of useful information. One I wanted to ask about was truancy. We've read recently that some schools, I read in one school in DC had a truancy rate of about 80%. And I've heard that truancy is an issue in Montgomery County. I wonder to what extent your officers deal with truancy issues in the course of their work.
Well, a lot of that is dealt with our community engagement vision and our community service officers. I don't know about truancy, but I can tell you right now, for a few weeks, they were wearing us out with the bomb threats. We were depleting a lot of officers and taking a lot of officers off the road because, as you all know, we can't just, it's a fake bomb threat. We have to take everything serious for every school. And on top of that, what's going on overseas, we have been dealing a lot with synagogues and places of worship and mosques and stuff like that. And we've been working, all the executive staff has been working with places of worship in their area to come up with safety plans. We try to be extremely, careful, and when people are at prayer, But we go in and we talk to all the community leaders beforehand, and they understand safety is the paramount. But what we have found is a lot of the time is these places of worship that are live feed kind of set themselves up for being targets, because this is what these for these individuals look for, just to try to stir fear. But that's what was going on also in our schools. But as far as the truancy itself, that is something MCPS would have to answer, and our community service officers, who do a tremendous job.
But you don't see bands of kids, outside of school at 11, 12, 1, 2.
Well, we do down in Four Corners, down at Blair, but they allow the kids that, I don't think they're technically allowed to go off the property in order to go to McDonald's or go to the Chipotle or something like that. But every now and again, we'll get fights or stuff like that. But Blair's principal and their staff have been awesome to work with, and we're constantly talking about them. But as far as just mass exodus of kids around 11 or 12 o'clock, no, we don't see that.
A lot of our residents are interested in, and one of your lieutenants mentioned it this evening, how you are ramping up the use of mental health professionals. Do you actually have any mental health professionals who are tasked to the 3rd District who, respond with you to incidents?
Well, we do have our community engagement team that are working with us. We have some tremendous partners with Bethesda Cares and Pathfinder DC and stuff like that. But I tell you, one of the best things that we've done is Nikki Hawkins is just amazing, Officer Hawkins. And what we have done is she is our community engagement officer as far as mental health, and she has a wealth of knowledge, and she is kind of our progress place liaison, and working with our CBD team where Nikki originally came from. But we're constantly working with HHS. HHS is kind of in the rebuilding stage right now. I know that talking with them, they're trying to hire more. Sometimes they get outbid by other counties. But we're basically relying right now on our county and government partners to kind of try to meet us halfway. Jacob Newman, Carson Henry, and the Red Shirts, they do a tremendous job too. We're always constantly in contact with them. When we get information about, for example, we had some homeless couples that were living in garages. We don't wait. We're starting to reach out. We talked to Carson Henry. We talked to the Red Shirts and Jacob Newman. We talked to Nikki Hawkins. How can we get them help? Bethesda Cares gets involved, and we're trying to do what we can do as we do it. But again, where you help one, you got 15 taking their place. So it is an uphill climb.
Let me remove this spotlight so we can look at our group. Who's got some questions for the officers before we adjourn for the evening?
If I could ask Alan, can I get the floor for one quick question?
Go right ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I've been trying to pull data out of Data Montgomery about crime, the data that comes from MCP, from the police department, and it's kind of difficult for a layperson to separate some of the data from the static. Is there somebody either in 3D or someplace else in the department that you could refer me to kind of help me sift through some of this so I can do some charts for the community?
Yeah, I can take that, I think. So I've tried to go through Data Montgomery and do some things myself, and I've also found some challenges with it. I believe they have a link on there to contact on Data Montgomery on who can help kind of tweak things if it's not right, and go through there. So I would try that. But I understand what you mean. I know again, it depends on what you're trying to do. I know we send out weekly summaries and things like that we put on our social media and other things, but there should be a link directly from Data Montgomery for the folks that import all that data in.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Mark. Paul Edwards, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, I'm Paula Edwards. I'm an ANC commissioner in DC. I'm right on the line with Silver Spring. And we recently had a young student who was crossing 16th Street who was struck by a Maryland driver while she was in the crosswalk. And we see a lot of dangerous driving in the mornings, especially because there's no reciprocity, so they just disregard our speed cameras. Is there any way we can work together to try to control this? Because it's getting very dangerous for our students going to school in the morning, coming home from school in the afternoons and the evenings. And I didn't, if there's any program that you have that you think we could work together with you on that. Thank you.
So what we could probably do is traffic division usually takes lead on this with our central traffic unit because they're the ones that are being deployed. They have details all the time around schools. If you will email me your information and your question at david.reed, as it's seen on the screen, at montgomerycountymd.gov, I will respond back to you, and I will also forward that to the people I think that could help best with this and see if we can get a clear answer and maybe some direction on how we can go forward.
Thank you very much.
Lieutenant Galladoro, so I found the information about the carjacking I was talking about for the date. It was 12/16/23. The notice that we saw was at 10:31 p.m. and the message read, Whole Foods armed carjacking, Whole Foods 900 block of Wayne Avenue in downtown Silver Spring. A woman was dragged out of her 2020 blue Audi Q3 by a man with a handgun a few blocks away on Silver Spring Avenue. Two men with handguns tried to take another car, but were unable to start it. So that was December 16th, and people were quite alarmed about that. So just wanted to mention the day and the time that we saw that report. So the carjackings, the people also quite alarmed at the armed robberies by ATMs, in the middle of the day. And that seemed to be a new development, and we're a little bit concerned about that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Yep. And
anybody else?
Yeah, as far as the carjackings, those are still open cases. There were two kind of back to back, like you mentioned, a very short time frame on that day. And then, like I said, if we're talking about the same ATM robberies where we had two back to back, there were arrests in those cases.
Oh, great. That's great news. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions for our friends from the 3rd District? Raise your hand. You can wave your hands wildly. You could put a question in the chat. Jay has got a question. Please, Jay, go ahead.
Sure. This is, nobody's talked about this, and I've had this question for years, and I've never asked it, and I probably should know the answer. What types of cases are actually tried at the Silver Spring Courthouse, and can the public attend them?
Sure. I'll take it. Number one, it's a district court. So generally it's your kind of lower level traffic, misdemeanor, and some civil cases, those types of things. Completely open to the public. You can go there and sit in there and watch all the hearings. They also do handle, I believe, domestic violence, petitions and those types of things. Completely open to the public. You can go there, have a seat in the courtroom, and spend some time watching the process there. And then the remaining Montgomery County courthouses are up in Rockville, where we have the circuit court and more of the family courts that happen over there.
Sure. Any of the cases that you've sort of indirectly referred to, do they take place in Silver Spring?
Yes. Yeah, these are a lot of misdemeanors, like the thefts from businesses, theft from autos. Like Lieutenant Galladoro said, these are your misdemeanors. The circuit court cases are your felonies, like your first-degree assaults, your stabbings, your shootings, the homicide. So these are low-level cases, and our officers in Silver Spring, like there's two different courthouses you can go to. Either one's in Silver Spring, one's in Rockville. All of Silver Spring and Wheaton officers go to Silver Spring. So a lot of the cases they hear are from Silver Spring, again, unless it's a felony.
Sure. So we could actually watch the judges in action there
Absolutely.
if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I think that should be part of the conversation that we have because it's right here in Silver Spring. It's a lot easier to get to than Rockville. And if the public can actually witness some of the situations that you're referring to, judges basically perhaps being overly lenient. And I think that might make a big difference.
Well, a lot of people go to these, especially for DUI trials. Don't be surprised if you see Noah Liata's dad there, holding judges accountable for, DUI offenders that 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I mean, like I said, Lieutenant Dzenkowski coming from the Alcohol Initiatives Unit can attest for this. A lot of the people go and take notes and doing exactly what you're saying because the judges are being too lenient, and these people need to be held accountable before they kill somebody.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that information.
I wanted to highlight each of our lieutenants and Captain Reed on the screen. I wanted to thank them so much for everything they do to keep us safe. And we appreciate you coming to our quarterly meetings of Safe Silver Spring. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. So I want to wish you a very happy holiday. And we will see you in February, I think. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Have a safe holidays, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks very much.
All right, everyone.
Bye.